Tanks are a crucial tool for any large-scale fighting force. In the Star Wars galaxy, this was especially true during the Clone Wars. Large armoured vehicles provided both additional armour and greater firepower to ground forces, and they were often essential in planetary invasions. The Republic had many models of heavy tank during the Clone Wars, but their tactics for using them were subpar. In Republic ground forces, there was often a disconnect between armoured units and infantry, and in this video, we'll be exploring the extent of this tactical flaw.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
The Grand Army of the Republic originally only had two models of heavy tank designed for it: the All-Terrain Tactical Enforcer, or ATTE for short, and Self-Propelled Heavy Artillery, or SPHA. The ATTE was a large, six-legged walker that featured both plenty of armor and plenty of firepower. It was operated by a crew of 7 clones and could house 20 clones between its two internal holds. This walker was favored by most Republic commanders during the Clone Wars, as it was useful in a wide variety of situations. Over the course of the war, it served as everything from an artillery unit and mobile command post to a boarding craft and asteroid-based naval weapon. The ATTE, alone among the Republic's heavy vehicles, was properly adapted to the infantry it was alongside, likely because the same Kaminoans who devised the orders of the battle for clones oversaw the designing of these walkers. According to the original Kaminoan plan, the ATTE was a vital part of any planetary invasion, together with clone infantry, SPHA-Ts, LAAT gunships, and acclimated-class assault ships. As we discussed in a video last year, the Grand Army of the Republic was intended to operate according to a standard battle plan for planetary invasions. At the start of a ground assault, acclimators would drop swarms of LAATs into the atmosphere, which would deploy a first wave of clone troopers and ATTE walkers. This first wave would claim a foothold on the planet's surface for the acclimators to land at, where they would subsequently deploy SPHA-Ts and the rest of their troops and walkers. The ATTE was a vital link in this chain, since unlike SPHA-Ts, they could be deployed by LAAT dropships, which meant they were the backbone of the first wave. Alongside infantry, they were responsible for one of the hardest parts of the ground battle, claiming a landing area and protecting the troop ships as they descend. Another model of heavy walker, the SPHA-T, was also a crucial part of this battle plan and served as a mobile heavy artillery piece, capable of piercing warship-grade shields and annihilating pretty much anything when given the time. But unlike the ATTE, SPHA-Ts weren't designed with infantry in mind, and so their uses were highly limited. They were large, slow, and had little to no maneuverability, meaning they could rarely be fielded in any battle that wasn't completely linear and featured terrain other than massive open fields. They were used to great effect at the Battle of Geonosis and Munilinst, but they fell out of use very quickly due to their many flaws, and most of them ended up being retrofitted to serve as ventral weapons on Venator-class star destroyers. Even when they were used in field battles, SPHA-Ts were often a pain for commanders to deal with, as they were designed without any consideration for infantry forces. This flaw would later reappear in a great many other Republic heavy vehicles. The ATTE, however, didn't have that flaw. Because the ATTE would have to work closely with infantry to fulfill this purpose, it was designed with infantry in mind. Its weaknesses were easily countered by accompanying ground troops, and it was equipped with ammunition reserves, spare blaster rifles, a medical droid, and other emergency equipment, and, on some models, a full mobile command center, complete with equipment that linked directly to the computers inside clone helmets. On an open field, clone foot soldiers and ATTEs worked flawlessly together. Unfortunately, though they were certainly versatile, ATTEs couldn't be used everywhere. Their size made them impractical for urban warfare, they could be easy targets in certain circumstances, and their heavy footfalls made them unsuitable for unstable terrain. These shortcomings cost the Republic several early battles, most notably the crucial Battle of Agamar, in which the heavy footfalls of advancing ATTEs caused the collapse of a crucial bridge, destroying the vanguard of a clone attack force in the process and ultimately preventing the Republic from capturing that crucial crossroads world. To combat the flaws in the ATTE, a variety of other heavy tanks were designed for the Republic's use. 4 more heavy walkers, the ATHE, the ATOT, the ATAP, and the AT-AT, entered Republic service. The ATHE, or All-Terrain Heavy Enforcer, was pretty much just an ATTE with longer legs and less powerful weaponry, while the All-Terrain Open Transport, or ATOT, was an 8-leg troop transport with an open cabin. Neither saw much use, as the open cabin of the ATOT made it useful only behind friendly lines, and the ATHE was useful only for asserting dominance over shorter separatist walkers. The All-Terrain Attack Pod, or ATAP, was a tall, 3-legged walker that packed the destructive potential of the ATTE to a smaller and more maneuverable walker, while the AT-AT needs no introduction. The Republic also started using heavy tanks that weren't walkers. The UT-AT was a repulsor lift tank designed for unstable terrain and featured 3 times the weaponry of the ATTE with less of the armor. The RX-200 Falchion-class assault tank was basically just a smaller version of the SPHA-T and was far more maneuverable and generally effective than its larger counterpart. And lastly, there was the HAV-W A6 Juggernaut, a colossal 10-wheeled slab of durasteel and weaponry, which was famed for its ability to, quite literally, plow straight through enemy armies and fortifications. By and large, these new heavy tanks were more powerful and more intimidating than the ATTE, and all of them saw extensive use during the Outer Rim sieges, during which overwhelming firepower became a favoured strategy for loyalist tacticians. Generally speaking, AT-ATs, UT-ATs, and Juggernauts provided massive amounts of offensive potential. RX-200 assault tanks, AT-APs, and AT-HEs were more maneuverable than their older counterparts, and AT-OTs occasionally proved useful moving troops in environments like that of Fallujah. But all of these new war machines had been designed with one crucial feature of the ATTE: how well the older walker meshed with infantry. As the Republic's heavy tanks became increasingly powerful, their designers began to forget about infantry. Many of the aforementioned vehicles had internal compartments for infantry, but these were poorly stocked and difficult to access during battle, unlike with the ATTE. They were also far more difficult for infantry to work around, and vice versa. The drivers of Juggernauts and larger walkers, for example, couldn't see clone troopers that were in the paths of their vehicles, and clones often had to change formation to make way for them. Even the ATOT, which was literally a troop transport, was apparently designed without infantry in mind, because the troop transport section left anyone sitting up there incredibly exposed, perched high atop a large, slow-moving target, just asking to be shot at. This likely resulted from an overall shift in loyalist tactical thinking. In the latter half of the Clone Wars, during the lead up to the Outer Rim sieges, the Republic started winning by harnessing its industrial capacity, which allowed it to produce all manner of heavy weaponry in large quantities. This industrial advantage did nothing to affect the production of clones, however, and so infantry started to slip behind. But Republic tacticians didn't care all that much. The first half of the war had proven that, on the front of infantry, the Republic was hopelessly outmatched due to the sheer numbers of battle droids the Confederacy was able to field. Even though the clones were vastly superior, the Republic would never be able to avoid being outmatched on the infantry front. As a result, the commanders of ground forces started to rely on heavy weaponry instead of infantry, resulting in a bit of a disconnect between armored units and clone rank and files. This would be a problem for any fighting force, and while it didn't cripple the Republic or anything like that, it did have widespread ramifications. Working with heavy units became a hassle for clones during the Outer Rim sieges, and in some battles, this disconnect even proved fatal. The Battle of Jabim was an apt example of this. The Republic lost that infamous battle in no small part because its experimental AT-ATs, which were leading the attack force, weren't working effectively alongside infantry, and were thus easy to single out and destroy for Alto Stratus' separatist forces. By and large, the overwhelming firepower these war machines provided were more than able to account for the disconnect with the infantry, however. The tactic of just getting bigger guns turned out to be a perfectly adequate counter to the Confederacy's tactic of just getting bigger hordes, and heavy vehicles were a large part of why the Republic was so successful in the Outer Rim sieges. But the flaw in these tactics would eventually come back to bite the Republic. or rather the Empire. The Empire primarily relied on Republic tactics as they were during the Clone Wars for the first part of the Galactic Civil War, and the disconnect between armor and infantry proved fatal for them. Heavy weaponry was relatively ineffective against the small, fast-moving armies fielded by the Rebel Alliance, and the Empire's infantry was woefully unprepared to face off against rebels on their own. But that's our exploration of the Republic's flawed heavy tank tactics, and as per usual, we want to know what you think. Of the heavy vehicles we discussed today, which would you like to hear more about, and which would you have chosen to drive if you were in the Clone Wars? Let us know in the comments section below. And just before you go guys, make sure you check out those links in the description below if you want to join the wider Geetsly's community, including our main Discord server where you can chat with myself and other Star Wars fans, our Geetsly's gaming network where you can play games with other Star Wars fans, and the Patreon. But anyways guys, as always, thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you in the next video.